Well guys, it's finally here. The long-awaited Aputure 300d Mark II. Perhaps the most powerful single-source LED on the market. Oh my gosh, what the hell is that? So as you probably know, Aputure just released their 300d Mark II, the new and improved and updated version of their widely successful 300d light. It features increased output, streamlined operation, and a really reasonable price point at $1,099 for a light with its capabilities. So I thought about doing a full detailed review of the 300d Mark II, but even within a week of its launch, YouTube was flooded with tons and tons of reviews already. So I thought I'd do something a little bit different. I thought I'd test the 300d Mark II against a contender. So this is the NanLite Forza 300. It's a light that's similar in specs, design, performance, and even price, actually at only $999. I was first introduced to NanLite at NAB 2019, and I was incredibly impressed with their Forza line of lights, especially the 300 and 500 models. Yes, they have a 500, and it's crazy. But with the 500 being much more expensive and both of these being 300 watt draw lights, I thought the Forza 300 would probably be the perfect contender to go up against the 300d Mark II. So before we get started, I want to put a disclaimer out there. This is not a sponsored video, and I purchased both of these lights with my own money. I want this to be a completely unbiased video. If you follow my channel, you know that I'm a huge fan of Aputure lighting products, and almost every light in my professional kit is made by Aputure. But as a professional, I'm always keeping my eye on the industry, on other companies, and keeping an eye out for what might be the best product for me. I also feel that I have the responsibility on this channel to share with you guys all of the different options and alternatives that are out there, because there's a lot of new stuff coming out all the time. So when I first saw the Forza 300 at NAB, I definitely had this itch of curiosity that I knew I was going to have to scratch. Now this is probably going to be a long video with lots of content, so I have put chapter markers down in the description below, so if you want, you can jump straight to the section with the information that you're interested in. But if you're here for the long haul, then let's do this. So in order to evaluate these two titans, I had to come up with some categories for us to take a look at. What I came up with is design, features, output performance, battery performance, and sound. So let's get started meeting both of these beasts by first taking a look at their design. So first, let's take a look at the light heads themselves. The Aputure 300d Mark II comes in at a length of 12 inches, a width of 5 inches, and a height of 5 inches, excluding the little parts that protrude with the yoke. The Forza comes in at 8 inches long, 5 inches wide, and 5 inches high. So the single source chip on the Forza 300 is actually physically larger than the one on the 300d Mark II. The Forza comes in at 1.75 inches versus the 1.3 inch chip on the 300d Mark II. Both heads are constructed of metal and have a honeycomb mesh up top to allow airflow through. They don't have any controls on the light heads themselves, but do have a single connector at the back that will connect them to their detached control and power boxes. Both of these fixtures do have internal fans. The 300d has two fans coming in at 3 inches each, while the Forza has a single larger fan measuring 4¼ inches. Both light heads are attached to sturdy metal yokes with 5/8 receivers on the bottom, and they're both capable of spinning the fixture a full 360 degrees. The Aputure has a single ratcheting knob for tightening down the tension, and all of the knobs are full metal, while the Forza actually has two tightening knobs, one on each side, with teeth to help hold it in place, and the knobs are all made of durable plastic as opposed to metal. Next, we're going to take a look at the detached control boxes for each of these lights. The Aputure control box measures 4.5 inches deep by 2.5 inches wide and 11 inches high, coming in at a weight of 5 pounds. The Forza control box is 4.5 inches in depth, 4.5 inches in width, and 18 inches in height, coming in at a little bit more at 5.5 pounds. The Aputure control box is all metal, which actually assists in its passive cooling, and it also includes a braided paracord strap. The Forza control box's body is made of mostly plastic, and it has a sort of faux leather carrying strap at the top. Now, both of these companies have taken into consideration how to keep those control boxes out of your way and up off of the floor. Aputure has integrated for the first time a clamping quick release system to quickly snap the control box to a light stand or C-stand where you have the head mounted. The Forza 300 also comes with this nifty little locking collar that can do the same thing. Instead of being a quick release, it has a nifty little just hang it in place solution. One thing I noticed with this design is that sometimes it makes swapping batteries a little bit tricky when you're on a stand, because the batteries are actually sandwiched between the stand itself and the control box. Now, when it comes to physical controls, the 300D2 has a familiar little jog dial with a menu button in the center. It also has several dual function buttons directly below its readout screen, allowing you to quickly access various features of the light. The Forza 300 has 2 control knobs and 4 illuminated buttons below its readout screen. One of these control dials doubles as a button and can be clicked in order to select and navigate through the menu system. Both of these lights have the ability to be run on Pro batteries. The 300D Mark II has 2 slots on either side of the control box where you can mount your batteries, while the Forza 300 has both of its mounting slots vertically on the back side of the control box. Aputure recommends that you use batteries that are capable of pushing 15 amps, while the Forza 300 says that it only needs batteries that can push 10 amps. One new party trick that the 300D Mark II has is that it can actually run on a single battery, but it will be reduced to about 50% power. Now let's talk about power bricks. Well, fact of the matter is the 300D Mark II doesn't have one. Aputure has integrated this separate power unit into the control box itself, which is really convenient. Now, the Forza 300 does have a separate brick, but they've actually put a mount on the back of it so that it can actually nestle right into the back of the control box, effectively making it a single unit. When we get down to how all these pieces are connected together and what lengths of cables we have, the Aputure comes with a 6-meter Nutric cable for connecting to wall power, and it also comes with a 3-meter 5-pin male to female XLR cable for connecting the control box to the fixture. The Forza comes with a 15-foot detachable cord for connecting it to wall power, and it also comes with a 2.5-meter cable for connecting to the fixture, which includes these multi-pinned locking connectors to securely connect the two together. And if there's one thing I love more than gear, it's cases for gear. And both of these lights come with awesome cases. Both cases have enough room for everything that comes in the kit, and you can even do some rearranging if you need to with the padded dividers inside. The Aputure case is 23.5 inches long by 9 inches high by 11.5 inches wide, while the Forza case is 21.5 inches long, 10 inches high, and 12 inches wide. The Forza case is quite rigid. It's what you'd kind of call a semi-rigid case, where it's soft on the outside but does have durable rigid walls inside. But Aputure has stepped up their game with the 300D Mark II case. It is now a double-walled case, which is actually capable of supporting up to 100 kilograms, meaning you can sit on it on set if you really wanted to. Overall, when both of these cases are loaded up with everything that comes in the purchased kit, the Aputure kit weighs 22.7 pounds, while the Forza kit comes in at 17.6 pounds. This is something you might want to keep in mind if this is something you're going to be lugging around from location to location during the day. Next, we're going to move on to features, because both of these lights can do a lot more than just make really bright light. So both of these lights actually now include various lighting effects built in. The 300D2 includes paparazzi, fireworks, lightning, faulty bulb, pulsing, strobe, and explosion. You also have the ability to adjust the frequency of these effects for even more customization. The Forza also comes with a few built-in effects, including 3 different flash settings, 3 storm settings, TV, and bad bulb. As of right now, it doesn't allow you to customize the frequency on those effects, but it's possible that this is something that could be updated in a firmware update down the road. Something additional that the Aputure has is different dimming curves. Now, I haven't fully explored these yet, but the general idea is that you're going to be able to adjust the way that your light responds to dimming adjustments. Now, when it comes to controlling the lights when you can't easily get to their control boxes, in typical Aputure fashion, the 300D Mark II includes a 2.4 gigahertz remote, and this one has actually been updated to include an effects toggle button to control its built-in effects. The Forza 300 apparently does have a remote accessory that you can get to do the same, but it is a separate accessory that you'll have to purchase if you want to be able to do that. And taking control to a whole nother level, I would be a fool not to mention the new Sidus Link app that Aputure has released. It is a Bluetooth mesh network that's actually going to work with their entire ecosystem of lights from the 300D Mark II moving forward. And they're even going to be able to integrate previous generation lights that had 2.4 gigahertz remotes with an accessory bridge that you can purchase that will port them over to the Bluetooth mesh system. Right now, NanLite doesn't have an app to control the Forza series of lights, but who knows, that's something that may come down the pipe in the future. All right, now we can get to the part you've probably been waiting for, testing the output results. So for the first test, I ran each of the lights at full power at a distance of 6 feet or 2 meters away from my backdrop. Both of the lights come with these reflector dishes that claim to aid in the focusing of the light to about 55 degrees. So since they're both very similar in design and they're included in the purchase of each light, I decided to have each light run its own reflector. This is test number 1. Camera is Blackmagic Ursa Mini 4.6, Schneider's Xenon lens on there. Do this. So let's take a look at what kind of numbers we got. As we can see, the Forza is actually pulling ahead here with nearly 30% more output, slightly higher CRI and TLCI, and a color temperature closer to 5600. The 300D Mark II is still within that range that we consider to be daylight. It's just coming in a little bit closer to 5200 Kelvin. For the next test, I wanted to really get the maximum output from each of these lights. So since they both use the Bowens S mount system for attaching modifiers, I decided to attach the Aputure Fresnel 2X to each of them. So NanLite will be releasing their own Fresnel attachment, but just like the Aputure Fresnel 2X, it's going to be a separate accessory that you have to purchase separately. That means that you could theoretically get either accessory from either company or any other company out there making Fresnel modifiers with Bowens mounts and use that on either light. But since I'm trying to compare the performance of the lights themselves and not the performance of their modifiers, I wanted to keep the modifier the same on both of them for this test. So with my quasi-scientific reasoning explained there, let's take a look at the results. So the most interesting thing I found from these results is that the 300D2 actually pulls ahead of the Forza 300 in output when using the Fresnel in both full spot and flood. This leads me to believe that Aputure custom designed and optimized their Fresnel 2X attachment to get the optimum performance on their lights. Now, I would definitely be interested in doing this test again head to head when NanLite releases their Fresnel, probably optimized for the Forza series. So now that we know how much power these guys can put out, let's talk about getting power in. When running on AC power at 100%, both lights have almost identical draws, with the Aputure pulling 342 watts and 2.95 amps, and the Forza pulling 343 watts and again 2.95 amps. But of course, both of these can also be run on battery power. I equipped each light with two fully charged Core SWX HyperCore Prime 190 watt-hour batteries. That is a mouthful. I ran each light at 100% to determine their maximum brightness, and the battery readouts gave me their expected run times. So these results actually ended up being nearly identical. Both of the lights were consistent in their output, whether they were using AC power or battery power, and using my particular brand and size of batteries, they both said about an hour and 15 minutes-ish of runtime. So I mentioned earlier that the 300D Mark II has a little party trick, and you can actually run it at 50% brightness when using just a single battery. So I wanted to see exactly how bright that 50% brightness was. So real quick, I put one battery on it and ran a test. And then as a little bonus test, I wanted to see how easy it would be to cut and shape the light from these using just their reflector dishes and a set of barn doors. Now, this might be more of a test of the modifiers themselves rather than the lights, but I wanted to give it a try anyway. I took each light and equipped it with its corresponding reflector dish, and then clipped on a set of the Aputure barn doors. Both lights were able to be shaped very easily at such a short distance, but I did notice something about both reflector dishes with the Aputure barn doors. The barn doors actually seem to be a little bit too large for Aputure's newly designed reflector dish, and they proved to be too small for the NanLite Forza 300 dish. Actually, while I was doing the test with the Forza 300, I had to actually hold the barn doors in place because I couldn't get them to actually clip on. Now, this isn't a huge deal, but it is something to keep in mind if you're thinking about mixing and matching accessories and modifiers in the future. Now, one factor that comes into play on sets where audio is being recorded is sound. Both of these lights do have fans inside the light heads. The 300D2 is completely passively cooled when it comes to the power and control box, so you won't be getting any noise from that. The Forza 300 power brick does have a small fan inside, but it's actually really quiet. The 300D Mark II fans actually run super quiet. But I noticed that the Forza 300 fan actually does not only make, that traditional fan noise, but has a little bit of a clicking. Now, it could just be that my unit has a slightly unbalanced fan, and that's not how other units are, but I'm reviewing them as I have them here. So the verdict is that the Forza does make a bit more noise, and some noise that could be a little distracting. Now, the Forza 300 does have in its menu the option to go ahead and shut the fan off. However, this is going to severely decrease the output of the light when you do so. The 300D2 doesn't have a shutoff for the fan, but it does have the options to set the fan to either always on or to have it automatically regulate when it needs to use the fan based on the temperature of the light fixture. So now, with all of our testing categories covered and complete, we can clearly see that there are some pros and cons to each of these lights when compared to one another. So while the Forza 300 appears to be better in light output and light quality, the 300D Mark II seems to tick a few more of those design and ease of use boxes. But now for what you really came here for me to give you a definitive, non-disputable statement as to which of these two lights is the best. And it's not going to happen. While performance and output can be measured in hard numbers, there are so many other factors that go into choosing a light that's right for you and your production. My intent with this video was to provide you with all the information that you would need so that you can make your own decision as to which one of these two is right for you. As for me, I'm keeping them both. So thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope this video helped you out if you are in the market for a high-powered single source LED light. There are affiliate links in the description down below where you can pick up whichever light you choose. Also down in the description below, I've put a link to a downloadable spreadsheet that has all of my measurements and output tests and results from this video. If there are any other tests that I didn't include in this video, please let me know in the comments down below and I'll try and do them for you and get back to you with the results. Or even better, you can go ahead and chat with me live by joining my Discord server. There's a link down in the description below as well. And as always, guys, if you liked this video, please go ahead and give it a like and make sure you go ahead and click that subscribe button and that little notification bell next to it so you get notified every time I have new content coming to the channel. I'll see you guys in the next one.